Parents have proven to be a convenient third party to blame for all the things you don't want to blame on yourself. Chapter 2. Owning your choices. There are two primary choices in life: to accept conditions as they exist, or accept the responsibility for changing them. Dennis Waitley. When you look at a map at the mall, before you can get to the store of your desire, you have to find the "You Are Here" marker. So, as we begin this process of writing a new chapter for our lives and defining our new destination, we have to first begin with the "You Are Here" marker. To be effective in making it to the next destination, we have to identify where we are. If we are to progress again and again, it helps to understand how you got there. Starting at the marker in the mall is no good if you don't know how to get out of the mall or find your way back to the marker. One part alone will only offer a portion of success. We must endeavor to know all three: where we are, how we arrived here, and the map to our next destination. One of the most difficult realizations I've made in my life is the truth of my choices. Be it a poor relationship or dead-end job, I seem to find myself feeling like a victim, wondering, how did I get here? Why is this happening to me? Where did I go wrong? I had that very conversation with myself. With great anguish, I did my best to analyze my life, my choices, my part. I'm smart, I thought. Smart enough to have been prepared for the worst. Smart enough to have successfully avoided the worst. Yet I stood like many others in the same empty place, feeling bad for myself and wanting desperately to get out. The problem was I really didn't know how. If you're a real estate agent who loves the hustle and satisfaction of closing the deal, discovering that the market is dried up can be disheartening. If you're a school teacher who has been subjected to district cuts, you may be wondering where to place that passion for training and educating others. Or maybe you're a spouse who never expected to be alone, and now, during the worst economic period of our time, you've been served with divorce papers. Whether job loss, relationship loss, or the loss of a loved one, the stages of disappointment and grief are pretty much the same. Shock and denial happen during the first stage of grief. The shock of discovering the behaviors of an unfaithful spouse, or the disbelief at the loss of a loved one, or having the rug pulled out from under you when losing a job. After weeks of working overtime through the Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday, I was bracing myself for a bonus as the Vice President of Human Resources and the Executive Vice President asked for a moment of my time. I sat, poised, prepared to act surprised as they adorned me with my well-deserved bonus or raise. After all, since the company's recent acquisition, I alone worked late each evening, preparing documents and methodologies for the merging of the two firms. The announcement of the merger had just happened days earlier, and now the real transition was in sight. My boss began. "You really are such a wonderful asset to our team." I thought, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Let's just get to the money, okay? My anxiousness turned to anxiety when I heard him say, "I'm really sorry to tell you that we have to let you go." I sat stunned, but quickly put a grin on my face. I guess to make them more comfortable with giving me the axe. The irony of it all is quite hilarious today. The same irony has been true many other times. I found myself expecting reward only to discover I would be denied my sense of stability or peace. The timing of that particular layoff was painful because at the time, my husband had not worked for about 8 months. My immediate panic was fortunately subdued when my husband received a job offer just days later. Nevertheless, the shock of the moment and subsequent denial can become paralyzing. There are some things we cannot change. If a loved one dies, clearly you can't change that outcome. You can perhaps recover from the sense of guilt you feel if there are words you fail to say or some unfinished work. But changing the outcome is not an option. Life-altering shifts, however, such as the breakup of a marriage or joblessness, we can redo. We can recover, and if we are daring enough, we can attempt the same endeavor with a different outcome. But we have to first figure out how we arrived in that place. The truth is, we have to own our part. We play a part in our broken relationships, marriages, failures, and the endgame of our job loss. We were participants who assisted in the development of our own disappointment and sometimes our demise. So let's begin by facing the facts. We own our choices. We own our part. Embracing that truth can be liberating because it forces us to transcend from the place of a helpless victim to an empowered victor. Like a child who has been assaulted, a victim was merely present. Things happened around that person over which he or she had no control. Victims are not participants. They are objects of someone else's actions. When you discover you are not a victim, it is empowering because it demonstrates that your participation is required. Therefore, if you choose to be a victor, you merely have to change your participation strategy. As I assess the adversity I sometimes faced in marriage, I really did feel as though I was punked in many ways. When your life doesn't unfold as you expect, or you come to realize that your spouse isn't you at all, but your spouse is in fact flawed, you may feel as though you were tricked or handed the short end of the stick. This kind of thinking negates the fact that you are a chooser. To suggest the short end of the stick implies that you made a choice without being informed. I know that I have made informed choices throughout my adult life. Thus, it is not possible to be overtaken by something or someone when you had the knowledge. Many people contend with feeling like a single parent when they thought they married a partner, feeling like a housekeeper when they discovered their partner refuses to do housework, or feeling like a sex object if they discover their partner doesn't have the capacity to be faithful. No matter the scenario, you are not a victim in the relationship. You did, in fact, take part in choosing your spouse as much as that person chose you. If you actively overlook the obvious signs, it is no surprise that you can now reassess the early stages of your relationship and see exactly what was there all along and why you chose to ignore it. The same can be said for taking a job that you knew didn't suit your lifestyle or wasn't something you were passionate about. Yet, you took it anyway, and now find yourself miserable and feeling trapped as the years wear on. So, let us begin at the beginning. Take a quick assessment of your part in choosing to be where you are today. Do you know your part already? You may have to ponder for a bit to see your truth, but you must see it. It took me a while to be honest about my part in my own downfalls. At first, I wouldn't admit it out loud, but once I recognized my part and owned it, I could forgive myself and say, "You're going to do better next time, girl." Journal this process. Seeing the words on paper is a powerful tool to support your progress. Now, it's time to begin writing your new chapter.